And now, Deborah Kobylt live with Little Italy of Los Angeles podcast.
Thanks a lot, Kurt, and thanks everybody for joining us for Little Italy of Los Angeles podcast. Super excited to have our guest on today, Doug DeLuca. Doug, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here, Deborah. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, very excited. So Doug is the co-executive producer of Jimmy Kimmel Live. He's an entertainment executive, an investor. He's done so much. We're going to get into that. But mostly, he's a man of Italian descent. So that's why we've got him on today, to talk about all things Italian, how he grew up, Little Italy in Los Angeles. So we're going to get into everything. So, you know what? Why don't we start from the beginning? Doug, you grew up where in New Jersey?
I'm from a town called Union, New Jersey, which is sort of a suburb of Newark, North Jersey, about 20 minutes out of Manhattan.
Yeah, what makes me crazy is so did I, right? We talked about that. I mean, I don't know a lot of people from Union, New Jersey. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is a guy out of Union? And that's incredible. What was it like for you growing up an Italian kid in New Jersey, Union?
I don't know that there was any one thing about being an Italian kid in New Jersey. I mean, obviously, Union was a very mixed town. I mean, it was Italian, it was German. It had a lot of different ethnicities. Most of our Italian upbringing came from our family and our extended family. I oddly, as an Italian kid, I'm an only child, but my extended family goes deep. I mean, I have cousins and cousins and cousins for days, and we all spent a lot of time together. And that's what made it special. And that's where we got our Italian roots and fill of Italian culture.
Your dad was a lawyer and your uncle was the Mayor Anthony Russo, correct, of Union, New Jersey? We knew him.
Correct. Big shout out. Anthony's probably listening right now, so big shout out. And Anthony, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Feast of San Gennaro, but he would come out to everyone we produced out here. So he was and is still a big supporter and a fan.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, I'd like to meet him next time he comes out here. That'd be exciting, especially that we have the same, all that stuff in common. Morris Avenue, just that was the main street that went through in Union. And you're right. There's relatives upon relatives. I don't have that here in Los Angeles, but they're all there still. And hopefully they're all watching as well. So, you always wanted to come out here, right? To LA. Tell me about that story, how you landed here.
I don't know about always wanted to, but in high school, senior year of high school, I followed at spring break, a girl I was dating at the time, Jennifer Wilson, her family came out to California for spring break. And I had a camp counselor that had moved to California. So I said, listen, I'm going to go visit my friend Judy Pullen and at the same time spend time with Jennifer and her family. So came out here in high school, loved LA, and sort of had that embedded in my brain. I went to college, I went to Villanova, and a very good friend of mine from a neighboring college, a guy named Mike Romaine, went to Temple University, and he left 2 years early to move out to California to finish college with his cousins in Long Beach. And I told Mike, I said, listen, I love it out there. It's a great move. And I said, when I graduate, I will be out there promptly. And he didn't believe me, but I held true to my word. So
yeah. And what did Dad say when you told him you were hitting the road for LA?
He wasn't thrilled. I mean, he was supportive. As an only child, I think he felt it was a tad selfish for me to basically want to move 3,000 miles away from the family, the roots, the whole thing. But it's something that something that called me and something I wanted to do, and I did.
I felt the same push, if you will, when I was a kid and I went out to Los Angeles to visit. I thought to myself, I've got to live out here. And it was the beautiful beaches. I mean, we've got gorgeous beaches in New Jersey, right? But the beaches out here, they were free. And it just seemed like a time to come and explore whatever. And here I am. I'm still out here too. And it's interesting because our friend Joe Busciano, over in San Pedro,
of course.
Yeah. Of course, that's how I got introduced to Little Italy of Los Angeles. And when I was there over the weekend, just, I'd lost Siciliana and I was having something to eat. I thought, this place reminds me of New Jersey. And I know that he's trying to create a Little Italy here, which is wonderful. Let's talk a little bit let's skip around a little bit. San Gennaro Festival in Los Angeles. You brought that here 10 years ago, isn't that right?
Yeah, I don't know if I would categorize it as bringing it. We created our own here in Los Angeles. And, that was an interesting thing. I was we used to have these great feasts at Jimmy's house or my house or wherever, Jimmy Kimmel. And we were making a brick oven pizza at his house. And, this was 20 years ago. And, I said, and he grew up in Brooklyn. He was born in Brooklyn and moved to Vegas at a young age, but he spent a lot of time in Brooklyn. And I said, this feels like the Feast of San Gennaro. Do you remember that? And, every year, in Little Italy, New York, they would have the Feast of San Gennaro. And it happened in September. It usually happened right around either the week before or the week after we went back to school. So it was sort of a rite of passage, end of summer. Go to Feast of San Gennaro, great food, great, fun and camaraderie, and then start the school year. So we looked at each other. I said, we're going to do that here. And he said, I'm in, great. And Adam Carolla was there as well, another Italian. And we never looked back and we just did it,
So many Italians that ended up out here. What was your favorite part of the San Gennaro Festival? Because I'll tell you mine, Zeppelins. What did you love about it? I just love that festival.
It was definitely I'd say Zeppelis, but who knows? One embarrassment for me is I don't speak Italian, and I should. So if I butcher anything to the Italians out there, I apologize. But yeah, that's the thing that stood out the most. And it was funny when we were divvying up amongst our friends who was going to take what booth, because we didn't know what we were doing. There's another Italian from Brooklyn. He's a writer on the show named Tony Barbieri. And he said, I want the Zeppeli booth. And he worked very hard and created it. And he named the booth Led Zeppeli. And he had the Led Zeppelin, a logo, and the person, the whatever, the angel or the Pegasus holding up a Zeppeli like that. That was the logo for Led Zeppeli. So yeah,
I can imagine that was a very popular booth, right?
Very. Hey, listen, what could be wrong? Fried dough with powdered sugar. I mean, how could that not be popular?
Absolute favorite of the San Gennaro Festival. Let's go back a little bit so you got out here, right? You went and you visited. You moved here, got in the car, brought your stuff out, and you landed, if I'm correct now, in Long Beach, right, with your friend?
No. He had moved.
No?
Well, it was an interesting story. I mean, by the time I got out here, I played football. He played football. He was a big guy. Mike remained. By the time I got out here, Mike was a bodyguard for Sylvester Stallone. He was living in LA. He was Sly's bodyguard. So I packed up. I spent the summer down in Margate, New Jersey, working at a bar down in Margate at the beach. And one last hurrah, I packed up I had a Jeep at the time, packed it up, and came out, and it landed in Los Angeles.
Did you think that was like really cool that your friend was working for Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Listen, it's when Sly was at the peak of his popularity. I mean, he was doing all his movies. He was a pretty big star at the time. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, but for a young kid from Union, that's like a big deal, because I know at least my family, they were like, Sylvester Stallone, oh my gosh, he made it. He's Italian. It was one of those things for me when I was a kid in Union, New Jersey. So I can imagine knowing somebody who worked for him back then would have been kind of exciting. So you came out here, and what did you do initially? What was your plan, or didn't you have one?
Well, I had a plan like every college kid has. It was to try to use your education in the field that you studied to then find your career. And I was a business major, international business, and I came out here and started interviews right away from the job boards at Villanova, and had some interviews, got a couple offers, but nothing really super exciting or inspiring. And I remember one day I came home to our apartment, and Mike was there, and he gave me sort of the best advice that and I still give it to some kids that come out today. I'd gotten a job offer, and it was a job that I'm pretty sure I would have been miserable at, but I wanted to work, and I was eager to work.
Yeah.
And I was deliberating, and Mike said, listen, this is an industry town, which is the entertainment industry, and you'd probably be pretty good at it. Why don't you explore something in the industry? And I said, well, how do I do that? Now, mind you, this is probably my first week in Los Angeles. How do I do that? And he said, simple. He said, go to Burbank, go to Central Casting, sign up to be an extra. And he said, you'll get on movie sets, TV sets, commercial sets, look, learn, listen, ask questions, meet people, build your network. I said, okay, let me give that a shot. So I went to Central Casting. I remember the first day, and I'm standing in line. All the casting directors were out at lunch, and they make you fill out a contact sheet, and they take a Polaroid. This is, before digital photography. So I'm standing there with my Polaroid and my contact sheet in line, and all the casting directors come back, and immediately one walks up to me and says, are you working tomorrow? I said, no. And he said, I have a job for you. And the next thing I knew, the following day, I was on a set of a crime drama called Hunter that Fred Dreyer starred in. And, I had a badge and a gun, and I was a cop, and I was running around on the set, and it was all really cool. And I started, I did that. So I spent a couple months doing extra work, and, I also had a second job. I was a bit of a rock and roll kid. So the Rainbow, which is a famous rock and roll bar on Sunset Strip, was something that was always a bit of a legend to me. So I immediately went there, probably the second day I landed in town, and I got a job as a bouncer at the top part of the Rainbow called Above the Rainbow. So I was working the Rainbow at night. I was doing extra work by day, and his advice was good. I met a bunch of people, and I sort of saw how the industry worked from behind the scenes.
Were you really excited to be doing that? I mean, come on. That to me just seems like so much, because you didn't really come out here to do it, right?
Right.
And then you ended up on these TV shows.
Yeah, it was super fun. I mean, it's sort of, if you're there just to work, it's sort of a bit mindless and tedious. I mean, you're waiting around most of the time, and then they're telling you fill in the background and pretend you're talking or pretend you're doing something. But again, I took it as an opportunity to sort of watch how the industry worked and how people made movies and so on and so forth. But it was super exciting. And I remember, which was really a fun thing too, I had gotten a gig as an extra on a big show at the time. It was Kirk Cameron. I think it was Growing Pains. It was his big hit show.
Yeah.
But the scene was somehow, it was a school play, and they sat me in the middle of Kirk Cameron's character and his girlfriend character on the show. And they had a fight directly over me, right? So my extra direction was just to sort of watch the fight back and forth like a ping pong match or a tennis match. But it ended up, it was a 3-minute 3-shot of the three of us. And again, it was a hit show at the time. And I remember like it went to air the following week, and, my phone was ringing off the hook. Oh my God, you're out there 2 weeks and you're on TV. And so it was, it was fun. It was a fun.
I love this. You're the big shot. So when you went back to New Jersey, what were they saying after that? What did they say?
I don't know. Everybody, you're a real big shot, but it was fun. I mean, everybody was very excited for me and supportive.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, that's fun. You're very humble, Doug. You're very humble still. After all you've been through, it's unbelievable. So then what happened? Then you ended up getting like an associate producer job, right? Or a PA job. And so eventually you went from being an extra, right? And carrying a gun around and doing all that stuff and ping-ponging between people fighting
Yeah.
to the other side, right? How did that happen? How did you jump to the other side of the entertainment business?
Well, again, Mike's advice worked out because on a set one day, you know, I was sitting around with one of the other extras, and he said, well, if you really like the business, you should try to work behind the camera. And he said, you know, I get calls a lot to be a production assistant, which for those, you know, not in the industry, that's basically a gopher, you know, get coffee, make copies, shovel crap, whatever it is. And he said, but I can't always fill those positions. Would you like me to give someone your name if they call me? I said, sure. And I remember one morning, you know, I'd worked late at the Rainbow. I was sleeping in. I didn't have extra work that day. And the phone rings, I don't know, 10 o'clock or something, 9:30. And I pick it up, hello. And, you know, I have a frog in my voice. I just woke up. And there's a long pause. And finally, the gentleman on the other side says, listen, I really need a PA. You know, I'm strapped. You know, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. He was trying to wrap out a show. He said, I have $100 cash if you can get here in an hour. I was like, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I mean, you kidding me? I'll be there in 30. Anyway, I went in and he and I hit it off. I ended up working that show for 2 weeks right up to Christmas, you know, stuck a big pile of, at the time, cash in my pocket. And he became one of my best friends. He was an associate producer or line producer on that show. And he's actually the godfather of my daughter. So we remained friends that whole time. His name's Kurt Fremlinger.
Oh, wonderful. But you know, what's the message here to people listening, especially young people, right? It's like, just get out there and do something, right? Just something, because eventually it leads to the next thing. Do you agree?
You know, take initiative, work hard, you know, do whatever you do it the best you can do it. I mean, that's an old, that was one of the things we used at San Gennaro. There's an old sort of Italian story, you know, the father tells the son, you know, he's sweeping the sidewalk in front of the store and he's sort of moping around and doing whatever, and says, listen, if you're going to do something, if you're going to sweep the sidewalk, be the best at it you can be better than everybody else, sweep it, you know, with heart and with intention, and make it great. And, you know, that just leads to other things.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it, no matter what you're doing. Absolutely. Do you kind of feel like those are like old fashioned kind of values that were instilled in you when you were a kid in Jersey as an Italian kid? You know, you're with an uncle that's a mayor and a father who's a success. What would you say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, and that's, I mean, I think at the heart and the core, I mean, that's what us wanting to bring San Gennaro and that Italian culture here to Los Angeles, it was really at the core about that sort of family and extended family camaraderie where you learned everything from, right? You learned, you know, good and bad, we'll say, but you learned everything. You know, you learned loyalty, you learned support, you learned, you know, compassion for other people, you learned about culture and friends, and, you know, sort of, you know, I can't tell you how many parties or events as family that we, you know, you pass down oral tradition. I mean, that's one of the primary ways to learn things in life. So yeah,
it'd be great to bring it to San Pedro. I'll tell you that. That would be someday. That would be terrific.
I mean, listen, I really applaud what Councilman Buscaino is doing down there, and the whole town of San Pedro. I mean, for those who don't know it, you know, it's an oddly Italian populated section. I mean, it's you know, it's one of the largest ports in the country, and, you know, a lot of Italians landed there early on because it was a fishing village, it was a port, it was all those things. And, you know, it's actually beautiful. I mean, you know, just aside from the port, which is very industrial, you know, it's a beautiful piece of land in Los Angeles, sort of off the beaten path. And those San Pedro Italians, I mean, they really do, like I don't see anywhere else in Los Angeles where there's that concentration of Italian culture and people who really sort of revere it and live it, and, you know, it's a part of their fabric, you know, of being. So I applaud what they're doing down there, and I support it.
Yeah, and they're really going to they're going all out actually. You know, they've got a piazza that they're developing, and they've got restaurants coming in and delicatessens, and you know, we're going to be having, you know, monthly events going on. So it's only just started. So you're right, I applaud them as well. Very exciting community, and the Italians who live there are very inviting and exciting. I love it. I went there just this weekend just to sort of see what's going on down there, and I can just see how it's developing block by block. So it's pretty terrific. So from your first PA job, right? How did you end up from one to what you're doing, and how did you meet Adam Carolla? Didn't you work with Adam Carolla and Jimmy early on in their career as well?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, work ethic and you know, just doing your job well, sort of for me, and taking initiative. You know, I mean, one of the things is we would sit around as PAs, and if there was nothing to do, you know, the majority of them would hide and try to, you know, take it as downtime, and I would look for things to you know, I would take initiative, right? The last thing your boss wants to do is constantly tell you what to do. I mean, it's better if you do it yourself. So anyway, one thing led to the other, another job led to another, and you know, I sort of came up in the production
Business.
manager, line producer, executive producer train, which, you know, has a lot to do with the business and the mechanics and the logistics of production. So, you know, one thing led to the other and led to the other. And there was a company that I had worked with quite a bit during that time. You know, it was all freelance, so it was one gig and the other. But there was a company that I probably on and off ended up working for about 6 years, which was a company called Stone Stanley Productions. And you know, at one point, it was right around 2000. I don't even remember now, but it was 20 something years ago. But you know, I had been off doing something, and they said, "Listen, we just partnered with Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla on a pilot that we just sold. It was the Man Show, and we want you to come in and see the show and watch the pilot, and we'd like you to come on as a producer." So anyway, I did, reluctantly, because I was doing something, again, entrepreneurial, but I said, you know, I'm doing my thing, and they said, "Come in, you're gonna like these guys, and you're gonna like the show." And I came in, and they were right. And you know, after a bit of time getting to know Jimmy and Adam and the other partner, who's another good friend, Daniel Kellison, who was an executive producer on that show, they ended up saying, "Yeah, let's hire Doug," and that was it. The rest
That must have been kind of a fun show to work on, because Adam is Italian, Jimmy's Italian, you're Italian. And I just think when a bunch of Italians get together, it's just sort of a fun time. It's an animated time, no?
It was wonderful. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of camaraderie and family, you know, sort of values and you know, being together. And you know, Jimmy and Adam are just such talents, and you know, that shown. It made itself apparent as they both went on to be extremely successful. So it was great.
What's your job now at Jimmy Kimmel Live? What do you do for them?
Well, you know, as a co-executive producer, we have multiple co-executive producers, and everybody sort of has their own lanes. You know, when we launched the show, you know, I went over when Jimmy got hired by ABC. Daniel Kellison and I were the first two to come over to launch the show. So in the early runnings, you know, it was shaping the show and helping build it out. You know, I focused mostly on the field productions and the skits and all that. But somewhere around end of year 1 or 2, I ended up started really to get focused on how we work with advertisers to enhance what we wanted to do and raise more money for the show. And that manifested itself in the realm of branded content, which is what they call it now. And we went out and I got a couple big brands to come in and support us and put a bunch of money into the show, and it allowed us to do some of the things we wanted to do. In particular, in the beginning, it was about music, because we have a beautiful festival-sized stage in our backyard which when budgets started getting tight, it was the first thing that people were looking at to cut. So I went out and I got it funded, and that grew into, a very healthy integration practice with brands. And now it's part of what we do. And, we were doing integrations on Jimmy Kimmel Live before really anybody was. I mean, I think maybe Mark Burnett was doing it on Survivor and The Apprentice, but nobody really was doing a lot of branded content. And we built a very healthy practice that still exists today.
Well, what do you think about all the Italians in Los Angeles that you run across in your business? Come on. I mean, there's so many of them. Name a few for me. You've got, why is he escaping? His name is escaping me. It just did the LA Stories movie. Help me out a little bit. I mean, there's just so many of them. Do you ever get together? Is there an Italian group that you get together with of Italian actors and workers, or not really? Because when I'm around a group of Italians, I get very excited. I talk about food and all that kind of stuff. We talk about our backgrounds and where we're from. Do you ever do anything like that?
I mean, we used to do it on a small scale, especially, San Gennaro was a good driver for that. But I think, what happens in LA is I think people end up getting very homogenized, and, I don't think, and there's not really an outlet to completely dive into your Italian culture out here. So I think it gets lost a little bit. I mean, that's not to say, there are, groups of writers and people that I'm sure get together on their own and do their own Italian things. But, there's not like a big, at least I'm not aware of a big Italian group where people are getting together and celebrating their Italian roots,
Since getting involved with Little Italy Los Angeles down in San Pedro, I've learned that there's a lot of us out here. There's a few 100,000, which I was shocked to find out. And I'm interested now. I'm interested in heritage and where where they're from, where I'm from, how that all goes together. Where is your family originally from in Italy?
Well, I'm a mix of 2 parts Sicilian, 1 part Napoli Don near Naples, and then 1 part Calabrese from Calabria. The family that I'm sort of closest to and the roots that I'm closest to are the Naples roots, which is Benevento, which is just outside of Naples, 30 minutes.
Right.
It's a beautiful town. And again, coincidentally, maybe, San Gennaro, the saint and was the bishop of Benevento, and that's sort of his home and his, where he came from, and his relics are still there in the cathedral in Benevento. So I don't know. In a way, it was fitting that I helped birth the Feast of San Gennaro here in Los Angeles.
Wonderful. And at first, you did it where, in Hollywood, and then over at the Grove, Caruso's place. Is that correct?
Yeah. We started for 2 years. We launched it, and then we did 2 years right across from Capitol Records. And you can't say Italian in Hollywood without Frank Sinatra sort of in that sentence. So
right.
So for us, having that beautiful iconic Capitol Record building as our backdrop, I mean, we set the stage for the performances where Capitol Records was the backdrop, and that was really fun and inspiring. And we did it 2 years there, and then we got asked by a friend of ours, Rick Caruso, who is a developer and has the Grove and a number of other places. Rick asked us to come over to the Grove because there was a big open lot over there at the time. And we did, and we did it, I think, 3 years at the Grove, which was wonderful and successful, and they were very, very supportive. And then finally, after that, we moved it back to Hollywood because it sort of made sense. At that point, the show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, was up and running, and and we had a head of steam, and we had this beautiful stage in our backyard, and we had the back lot and the whole thing, and it just made sense for a number of reasons to move it back there. So then we moved it back to the back lot of Jimmy Kimmel Live.
What we're trying to do would be great. I was thinking, I just had a brain freeze before, right? Quentin Tarantino. It's funny. I was at an event and I was talking to him and I was mentioning Little Italy, Los Angeles. He goes, wait a minute, I grew up here. Where's that? So what, and I was talking to him about it and a few others, actors and people in the business. And they said, where? So that's why it's great that you're coming on to talk about a little bit about your heritage, a little bit about who you work with and San Gennaro and everything else, because that's sort of the goal here, to let people know that there's lots of Italians out here and we're interested in our heritage. It's fun. And there's a little place to go with authentic restaurants. I don't know if you've been there to actually, go to some of the restaurants. They're fantastic. I mean, they're really authentic. You've got most of them, frankly, who have the restaurants are from Italy. They're first generation and they came here and opened up, which I think was really, really very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the restaurants down there. And look, and I think the other important note is the Italian culture appeals to people way past, Italians,
Us,
right?
that's
and,
right.
And you have to tap into that. I mean, my wife and I joke. My wife was very instrumental in helping us run San Gennaro, and
That's right.
she's Venezuelan, and but I somehow found out that she had 6.25% Italian in her gene pool. So I latched right onto that and recruited her to help us, help us build San Gennaro. And she loves the Italian culture and really gets it. And I think that's sort of what Little Italy is going to strive to do and needs to strive to do, is reach just past the Italian community and make it something for everyone,
Yeah, get everybody down there. I have a friend who's a publicist and I was telling him about it and he goes, what? He goes, it's too far. And I said, no, but when I tell you what we're doing down there, and he got excited and he actually went the other night and he went and had dinner, even though a lot of the restaurants still aren't open for indoor, but they still have some outdoor seating.
It's not that far. I mean, you think
Nope.
It's far, and in LA, it's easy to think things are far, but I mean, it's 30 minutes probably.
Yeah, from where I am, which is, in the Brentwood area, it took us 20 minutes to get down there. It was very, very easy. From Hollywood, it's about 20 minutes as well. So,
yeah, but you went down there during COVID, so there was no traffic, right?
less traffic. Actually, it was just this past weekend. I got to tell you, a lot more cars are on the road, but yeah, not as full as it naturally would have been.
No.
There's no doubt about it. So you mentioned earlier that you don't speak Italian. I find that interesting. I don't either. And a lot of people, like our parents' generation, they just didn't teach us, right? And I notice it's very different with a lot of the community that I know that now, because they're speaking Italian to their kids, their grandparents. But it was one of those things where you don't speak Italian anymore. You're American, you're speaking English. I wish I knew, and I'm always saying to myself, I'm going to take it up again. What do you say?
It's a very interesting, history. And there's a writer, his name is Paul Palacelli. And, Paul was very involved with us during San Gennaro. And he wrote a book called, he wrote many books, but one that I love, and I took a lot from it as we were building, the cultural side of San Gennaro. It was called Under the Southern Sun. And he really explains what was going on in Southern Italy at the time of our grandparents and their parents, immigrating to America, to Australia, to wherever it was. And it was not a great time for them down there. Right. They were a bit oppressed. They were poor, and they wanted a new life. They wanted something that they could make a life for their families and for their kids and whatever. And America was, that dream. So when they came here, they weren't saying, hey, we're going to bring Italy here. It's like they were almost trying to leave that behind and become Americans and acclimate and integrate to this society. And I think as a result, it was like, you listen to the kids, listen, if you're going to succeed here in America, you're going to speak English. We're not going to speak Italian at home. We're going to speak English because we want you to succeed and grow in this society. And, that trickled down and, it's like my parents could speak some words, but they didn't, they couldn't speak it fluently, and they certainly didn't speak it to me. And, that's a bummer. I wish I had learned it. I wish I could speak it.
I'm going to take it up, and I always say that, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to take it up. I really am.
I,
You know, it's funny.
I always say it too. You won't. You'll say it, but you won't actually do it.
Well, maybe we could take like an online class together. You know, once you commit to somebody, it's like, oh my God, I've got to show up now because he's going to be there.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? So, yeah, the only words that I knew growing up, honest to God, were the curse words, because those are the ones that I would get when they were mad at me. So I learned about 6 or 7 of those, but otherwise nothing else.
Yeah, those are
So-
easy. Everybody knows those.
Everybody knows those, I know, especially when you were called on a few times. How about, do you have a favorite Italian actor or two that you could tell us about, that you've worked with, that you know well? Can you share?
I mean, listen, there are so many Italian greats. I mean, De Niro, Pacino,
Amazing.
Yeah, tons. I mean, listen, coincidentally, also from Union, New Jersey, where you and I grew up, is Ray Liotta. I mean, Ray Liotta grew up in Union, and Joe Mantegna, who we love. I mean, there's a ton. Jake Gyllenhaal's very Italian, by the way. And
yeah, I knew that. There's a whole pile of us. If you just keep looking, you'll find us. I mean, look, Nicolas Cage, but everybody knows that one. But there's so many, right? There's so many. So tell us, do you have a favorite Italian dish? And do you cook much, or does your wife cook much Italian?
I cook a lot. And I love cooking. It's one of my hobbies. And it's also, and it's a mode of creative expression for us guys as well. You know what I mean? At least I look at it that way. So I love cooking. I cook a lot. And I've become friends with tons of Italian chefs as well. And they're just such great artists, whether it's Chris Bianco from Phoenix, making his pizza, or Michael Cimarusti here in Los Angeles, or Mark Vetri in Philly, or the Frankies from Frankie's 457 in Brooklyn. So I've got a lot of John and Vinny. I mean, here in LA. I mean, there's a lot of Italian chef role models, and I think you're going to have a great chef on next. I think he's waiting in the waiting room from his
no, he is La
San
Siciliana, absolutely. So before I let you go, so what have you been doing during this time of COVID? I know that you've been doing this show virtually, which has been tough for everybody. It's a little tough. You have technical problems. You never know if somebody's going to, the dog's going to come into the room, which is, I suppose, part of the fun of it all. But when do you think you'll be back in studio?
Well, we never stopped doing it, and it's a credit to Jimmy and our team. And we figured out pretty quickly how to pull it off technically and make a good broadcast show. So, and it's been good for us. I mean, our ratings ratings exploded, and also I think Jimmy's a good voice for the current time as well. But we never stopped, and and we're continuing on. I mean, I think the back in studio question is one that everyone's asking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we hope that something will break in the fall and we'll be able to do that. But I mean, it's shifting sands, So, but as far as work goes, I mean, we've been as busy or busier. Being in quarantine and working from home, there ended up being so many good things, being with the family, being at home. But, one of the biggest things was, for me, I eliminated probably 3 hours in the car, round trip, and then driving around. So, I'm able to wake up, do whatever I want to do exercise wise, and then start working, eat regularly, cook for myself, continue to work, and then finish at a normal time, 6 o'clock or whatever. And I'm here, I'm here. And it's so all that's been good. And then I sort of transferred some of my online technical knowledge to help my wife. I mean, my wife, Alejandra, has a beautiful meditation studio and yoga studio out here in Malibu called Malibu Meditations Journey. And, we've been doing some online stuff with her, a lot of, live streams and so on and so forth. And then she just reopened last week. So she's doing some socially
That's great.
meditations and stuff. But that's kind of what we've been, occupying our time with.
Yeah, we've all had to pivot. Plus, you have a 13-year-old daughter. You're at least spending more time with her now that you're home, right? So
yeah, I'm not sure she loves that, but
I don't think my kids do either. They're like, it's okay, Mom, bye.
But it's been wonderful.
Yeah, so I want to thank you so much for coming on. I just want to give a couple of shout outs to everybody. We are planning lots, whenever we're able to, right around the piazza. More restaurants are open down in Little Italy, Los Angeles, and San Pedro. So if you go down there a lot, they've opened up seating on the sidewalks, which is kind of nice. But also, I think starting next Friday or next month, just go on the Little Italy Association page because they're going to be starting a farmer's market.
What's the page? What's the web address?
Little Italy of Los Angeles Association. Little Italy of Los Angeles Association. Go on that page because we're going to be starting
is that the URL? I mean, could they have fit a few more words in there or no?
I know it is kind of long. Sometimes I have to think, wait a minute, what comes first? Association of Los Angeles, but it's Little Italy of Los Angeles Association. We're going to be starting on Fridays a farmer's market, which is really great because they're going to be selling all kinds of authentic foods and vegetables. So that's going to be really cool too. So look for that as well.
I mean, listen, I just a quick plug for anybody who wants to. I mean, what a great, while people are home or whatever, what a great day trip down to San Pedro. I mean, it really is beautiful and sort of a charming village, if you will. And the restaurants are great. I mean, you're going to talk to a great chef and restaurateur here in a minute, but the restaurants are great. The views are great. I mean, it's really, it's a fun day trip if you've never been down there, and people should go down and check it out because that Little Italy is going to be fantastic. Absolutely.
Doug DeLuca, thank you so much. A man from New Jersey, Union, New Jersey, my hometown, which is kind of crazy. Ended up out here living, in the next town over. Go ahead.
As you know, there was a saying, a slogan, what helps youth helps Union. And
what helps?
That was our town slogan. By the way, Jeff Ross, the comedian's also from Union, New Jersey, and he's a friend. And every time I see Jeff or bump into him, the first thing we say is, what helps youth helps Union.
Isn't that funny? To me, when I think of Union, I think of the Knights of Columbus. Do you remember that? I mean, we belonged there, and my parents did rather, and I would go to the pool and swim every day.
We were Elks on our side of town. We were Elks, and we had the Elks Club, and that was our pool. But I used to come swim at the Knights of Columbus a lot.
All that and Galante Funeral Home. And my uncle's place, Vito's Auto Electric. I got to give a plug for them. I spent a lot of time at Vito's Auto Electric. So there's all kinds of great things in Union.
Chaffee's Pizza. Don't forget Chaff, right in the center of town. Chaffee's.
The best. There's so much we could talk about. I've got to go back next time I go to New Jersey. I haven't been back to Union in a while because my family moved to Florida when I was a teenager, but we're going to go back. So anyway, thank you so much, Doug, for coming on, for talking about your heritage, your very successful career. It's unbelievable. Whoa, one more thing. That artwork behind you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I hope he's listening. I mean, again, another Union connection. So there's a very successful Emmy Award-winning TV director and producer out here called Eamonn Harrington. His name is Eamonn Harrington, and he, his partner John Watkin, they have a company out here called Planet Grande Pictures, and again, many Emmys to their credit. But Eamonn's also an amazing painter, and he, this is one of his pieces. My wife and I and John Watkin launched a music festival out here in Malibu called the Malibu Guitar Festival. And, we have fun doing that. But Eamonn painted this for us. And again, that's Eamonn Harrington, Union boy, living here in California. So, there it is. So
shout out to you. And okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad I didn't forget that because I was admiring it when we first started speaking to each other. So thanks everybody for joining us for the Little Italy Little Italy of Los Angeles Association podcast.
You can't even say it. You can't.
No, I can't. It's too many words. I really do appreciate it. My name is Deborah Zara Kobylt, and you're with Doug DeLuca, executive producer, investor, entrepreneur, Jimmy Kimmel Live. Very exciting to talk to you, and appreciate you all being here. Please check out Little Italy down in San Pedro. Thanks for being here.
Check it out. Bye-bye. Thanks, Deborah. See you later, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, we're off.